get that uploaded. Oh, I probably ought to ping everybody though. So
Don't mind me. I'm just gonna eat a McDonald's burger real quick.
okay, you can turn off your camera, but you can keep it on and make everybody wish they had a McDonald's burger too.
See?
Registered trademark. Hang on, I
Way to
gotta.
make me hungry. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Jamie is. We always the timing is always just where, even when we know I'm doing this, we always end up not having it ready at the right time. So I can smell really good stew being cooked right now.
My fiance's out for the evening, so I didn't feel like cooking.
Let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm missing a class. What is it? What am I missing? 1600. What class am I missing? 26, 20. I've got two. We got 8 classes. Oh, you're 2700. My 2700. I got it. I think that's it. Okay. Weekly meeting time. All right. I have now officially pinged everyone. And join the class chat. Server voice. All right. I am recording. Oh wait, he can't. He probably can't hear. I am recording. Cool. So I actually have some class questions to answer before I start ranting about everything this week. Which hopefully we'll have. I'm telling Eric. I don't think he's ever actually joined this chat, so let's see if he figures it out. But he's having issues with texture painting in Blender, which is not uncommon because there's a bunch of things that can go wrong with that. So we want to make sure that he's got that worked out. And then Brendan, I think probably for your camera issue, we should do that another time just because that's way too easy for that to end up. It may go really quickly or it may end up eating up, 30 or 40 minutes or something. I hope it doesn't take longer than that, but I'm a little bit worried about that spiraling out of control.
No, that's fine. I understand.
The Eric's question is a little more straightforward. Hey Eric, how's it going?
It's going great.
So do you just want to screen share? I'm sorry, I know we've been going back and forth missing each other about that, but it's probably a pretty simple issue. But I mean,
Yeah,
not. Oh yeah, have you screen shared before?
No, I don't think on Discord.
So what you should be able to do is just click. There's a little share your screen button, and just obviously open it.
Yeah, there it is.
And you can share your whole screen, or you could also just open up Blender and you can share where we only see Blender. So.
Okay, it's loading.
Excellent.
Was I able to share my screen last time you and I talked?
I think you're not on a Mac, are you?
I am on a Mac.
Okay, well we'll see because sometimes Discord and Macs don't play nice when you're trying to screen share. One of my students, we ended up having to use Zoom instead because it was too much of a hassle trying to get the screen sharing working, and then Zoom just worked no problem. Because if you've never screen shared with Discord, you may have to go into your system settings and allow Discord to screen share, but it's kind of annoying. I think you have to enable screen recording, and then there's a separate place where you enable screen sharing.
I can't click on settings for some reason.
You can't click on your system settings?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that rainbow loading.
Okay.
Pinwheel of death moment.
Yeah, shoot. Well, okay, we may have to just do it on. Why why don't I show a couple of reasons why that might happen? I could just screen share Blender, and I'll show a couple of reasons why that might happen. And this way, you can hopefully troubleshoot what's going on, and then just let me know if it's not one of these things. Okay.
Okay.
So, and this hopefully this will help anybody that's potentially messing around with this stuff. So, so I'm just gonna make a mushroom. Do this, and then we'll do this. We'll scale it out, and we'll make the most beautiful mushroom ever made. And subdivision surface that.
Sorry if this looks weird. By the way, I'm debugging something in VR.
We're all judging you. It's okay. That's the only purpose.
I mean, it's way easier to just look at something in VR through the lenses rather than look at 4 versions of it on a
Yeah. No, I know. But there's a reason I avoid doing VR stuff as much as possible.
Yeah, some people get really sick with it. Yeah. I could sleep in this thing and I'd be fine. But
all right.
Trying to work on.
I'm spending way too much time on this, but let's see. Okay, so we got a mushroom. Let me apply that, and then okay. So there's a couple of things to be aware of. Like once you go into texture paint on this. So actually, my guess is this. Oh yeah, let me create a texture for this. Yeah, base color, mushroom. All right, and awesome. So it's all messed up right now, right? So when I'm trying to paint in certain areas, it's not showing it. Well, now it's going okay, but like here, you can see how it's smearing up that way.
I can't see anything. I just see you.
Oh, well, that's because I'm not screen sharing. I started recording and I forgot to screen share. So, there we go. Perfect. This all went exactly. Okay, can everybody see this now?
See what?
Yes,
Okay,
you
gotta click on my name and watch my stream. And like and subscribe.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if I go into texture paint mode, so if I start trying to paint, do you see like here how it's smearing up that way? Like I'm painting down here, but it's going all the way up here.
Yeah.
So that's probably what's going on yours. This has to do with the UVs. So if I go into the UV editing tab now, what's happening is, well, let me go back to texture paint over here. So when I start painting, let me find where that spot was looking bad. Oh, that's kind of getting it. Trying to find, there we go. So if you look over here, what's happening is as I'm trying to paint this, why isn't that doing as bad? There it goes. Okay. So what's happening is if I go into edit mode, these faces that I'm painting on, if I select them all, it's like this little tiny part of the texture is being mapped to all of those faces. So the problem is I need to make sure that my faces are not like overlapping. So there's a couple things that can be happening, Eric, with yours. One thing that could be happening is your UVs are overlapping with other parts. So let me just purposely mess this up. So I'm going to select all my faces. I'm going to hit U to unwrap, and I'm just going to do a smart UV project for now, just to get a quick layout. So now if I go to school, if I start painting, this is going to look okay. But what can happen is if your UVs like end up overlapping, like I have this overlapping with this piece. Let me just go back to texture paint and I'll do a different color to see. Now when I'm trying to paint on that one part, it's showing up in another spot because what's happening is both of those faces are being mapped to the same pixels in the texture. So that's what the UV coordinates do. Or basically it's saying the 2D representation of this 3D surface has to be laid out. And so that's one thing that can be happening is if you're painting in one area and it's showing up in another area, it's probably because you have overlapping UVs. And so there's a couple ways you can fix that. Like in my case, I can just see this. Oh, that looks like it's overlapping. So if I go into edit mode, I can go and select that overlapping part. And up here, I'm going to choose select by island. So that's going to select entire chunks that are connected like this. And I can just say, okay, that part that's overlapping, I need to move that. Oops. I'm using the other software. If I hit G, I can move that into an empty space. And now if I start painting wherever that's at, there we go. You see I'm painting there and it's showing up. Now it's not showing up in that on both sides because I've moved it to another area. So if I start painting there, it's only affecting that. So that's the most likely situation that's going on, is that your UVs are either overlapping or you have them like I had earlier, where what can also happen, let me just try doing a quick fill. There we go. Just basically redoing this all. I have to go into image editor. How do I do paint? Man, I haven't. Oh, there we go. Yeah. All right. Well, if I'm just trying to override everything I was just doing. Oh, I made it black instead of white. All right. What did I just do? Oh, there we go. Nope. Okay. Close enough. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to purposely break it again. So another thing that can happen would be if I select edit mode and I select this, and some of these, say like some of these vertices are either, they may not be technically overlapping, but they're so close together. They're like really scrunched up tightly together. They haven't been, the UVs haven't been laid out nicely. Please tell me I can box select. Blender, what are you doing? They've got to make the UV tools better. Okay. Let's see. If I do something like this, now if I try to paint on that one area, let me pick color again. That's actually still not horrible, I guess. Well, you'll see if I try to paint it directly in here, you'll see it more apparently. Image editor, paint. I'm trying to just do like a circle in here, but it's showing up stretched out like that. That's because the UVs, I have it where this whole face is like scrunched up into this little tiny area. Okay, so that's one thing that can be going wrong. It is possible for some other issues to be happening. So even if my UVs are all perfect, so I'm going to do smart UV project. I've got decent UVs. I should be letting me paint. There's other things that can cause issues. So for example, if any of these faces are flipped, so let me try to see, I do Alt N and flip those normals. You'll get some weird lighting issues like this too, by the way, unless you have this set to shade flat, you're not even going to notice that. But if I do shade smooth, you'll see I've got, these are bad normals. I actually have, I just flipped the normals there. So in texture paint mode now, if I try painting on that, wow, actually it's still working. Well, was it? Yeah, see, actually now I think that's not working. And let me see if it's possible that, basically weirdness with my geometry can cause some issues like that. The other thing I can check are my brush tools or my brush settings. So if I click the brush drop down, oh, it's probably gonna be in stroke. This is this would be my last resort. My guess is that the situation you're having is because of the UVs needing to be fixed, but the stroke can also do this. You can have things like, well, actually, wait. No, it's wait, no, it's not in the stroke. Is it? Where are the settings for the? Did they move that, or am I just forgetting? Options. Oh yeah, here you go. Under the options, see, this is where like because by default it has back face culling turned on. That's where if you have flipped faces, that could be causing issues. Occlude. This is the other one. Only paint onto the faces directly under the brush. Now if I do this, you'll see that's actually painting through the object. So that's another, I mean, normally you want that on, but it's possible that if there's an issue with your mesh that you would be having some sort of issue like that, where it's like, I'm painting on this, but it's actually coming through down there, if that makes sense. Couple other options potentially that could be causing those issues, but I really think it's probably the UVs. Oh, one other thing is it could be if you accidentally turn on mirroring. I should have mentioned that, but like if you click that X, it's mirroring on the X axis or the Y axis or the Z axis or all of those axes at the same time. That can also do some weird stuff as well. So you just want to make sure that if you don't want mirroring on, you just make sure none of those are showing up blue. That would be another easy fix. So I don't know, Eric, is any of that looking like that could be the issue?
I think that. Yeah. I think it's that. I think it's that ocular one.
Oh, the occlude thing is what's causing the issue?
Yeah, I check marked it, and now it's not happening anymore.
Oh, yeah. So I wonder if it didn't get, because that should be on by default. So maybe somehow it got turned off or something.
Yeah. The video told me to turn it off, I think.
What? Oh, I'm gonna have to go break Grant Abbott's legs again.
You've done that before?
Yes. Don't tell him I said that though. No. Cool. All right, that's awesome. So yeah, just let me know if it keeps up. But this is why I wanted to screen share this, is because for anybody that's doing, anytime you're doing texture painting, those are like kind of the troubleshooting steps I would take. So cool. Yeah, I'm glad we got that worked out. Okay. Does anybody else have questions? Brendan, again, I don't know, we may be able to get yours worked out kind of quickly, but did anybody else have questions about either Blender stuff or anything? Or Kato's saying Grant doesn't need his legs, only his hands. He may beg to differ, but no. Yeah, so I don't know. Does anybody else have questions, class questions stuff, like even upcoming assignments or questions about previous assignments or anything like that? No. All right. Awesome. Well, what does everybody want to talk about? I mean, I have things I want to rant about. But I don't know, Ken, I'll give you the floor first. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry for everybody. I should have mentioned earlier, Marla told me she's having to get prepped for surgery, unfortunately. So she's not going to make it tonight. And hopefully she'll be all good by next week. But
oh, that's unfortunate.
Nathaniel's muttering something in VR, but
yeah, I was saying that's unfortunate. I hope she gets better.
Well, so Ken, I don't know what's been going on.
What's been going on? It's another week.
Another
A
day,
week
another
of-
dollar.
of- yeah. I did. The people have been posting stuff in 3D, and for the 3D, lots of cool stuff being posted there. A bunch of people are posting stuff in the character development.
Yeah, what's up with my classes?
Wait.
Nobody's posting in mine. Well, we got them in intro to 3D modeling, but I don't know about my other classes.
Brendan actually posted a kind of a final image in the said that, what was the exact words? I mean, characters look great and everything, but it's kind of gone straight to the final character design, and said he said that he should probably work through Ken's process more. Well, it's not my process, but I was going to say that the process of that we're covering in the character development class is the reason you would want to work through all of the elements of it is, well, one, if you're working in a studio, that's kind of the process that you're expected to kind of like work through. So, and also if you're not working on your own stuff, say you're working on something that's branded and has a style that's not necessarily your own natural style, but you have to work in that style. That's when working through all of the different processes in the class is kind of important.
I think
So,
that's a really good point that I definitely don't talk about enough with my classes.
I know people can do people. I mean, we've got a bunch of good, great artists that are working, that are doing stuff in these classes. It's. I guess the thing is to take away the knowledge of how to approach something in a situation where you're working with an art director or a supervisor or a lead designer, and the process is a way to fall back on how to approach the work. Like I've worked on stuff that's very cartoony and stylized, and then stuff that's very photoreal. I've worked on like Hasbro stuff and Madden and yeah, you know, lots of different styles of and different types of products. But I guess if you have the discipline to work through the different stages and really explore the different stages, it gives you the tools to basically solve all the creative problems that you want to solve within a project, rather than
And I think a huge part of it that I haven't really focused on enough is that you typically are not working for yourself. You're typically working for other people, where you are not, you can't just be like, do you like this? And it's the done thing. And it's like, they're like, no, that's not what we had in mind. And you're like, oh, that's why there's that. I think that's what everything you were just saying is a good explanation of, like, it's a good process to go through for yourself, but it's also necessary when you're working with other people to make sure, like, that's why we start off with pencil thumbnails, and then you're getting my limited experience of it would be like, I know pretty well the process that, like, Magic the Gathering card art goes through, where they've got the card, they know the gameplay of the card, and they may have the card description or something like that. And you've got to generate these real actual, like when we say thumbnail images, we're talking about pretty tiny images to make sure that it reads clearly, but it's really basic sketches initially because they don't want you building out a whole image and then it's like that's not really the direction we wanted to go at all. Or that way you're discussing it with the client. Okay, that's a good general direction. Then you do a pass on that to say, okay, I like what you're doing with the lighting idea, but can we try different colors? And it's again, I think
Yeah,
it's
the process was for input by the stakeholders or by clients or by your
right.
director or by I think that's the when you're working on your own designs and making your own characters, you know, it's still good to be aware of all the things that are, value structure and color theory and, you know, shape language and all those things that we're discussing. But it's really important when you're working in a studio with a team that they, that your director or your supervisor or whatever, or just another person on your team has opportunity to come in and if you have a structured process that's working, there's those. It allows for efficiency because you're not going off uh, creating a bunch of stuff that's going to then be thrown out. It's a collaborative experience, and if everyone's speaking the same language, which is where the process came from. It's not my process. It's you know something that we use in the throughout the industry. Um, so anyway, I guess that's the important thing. Not when you're doing your own stuff, but when you're to be aware of all of those different parts of a process, so that you can uh, be a good team member
This
and
is
designer, and actually add value to whatever task you're being given to do, which might not be something. It might not be the greatest thing that you're doing. It might be when I was at EA Salt Lake, I had to work on The Sims for a little bit just to help out. And
no big
it's The
deal.
Sims. It's The Sims, so they have a very strict way of like look and feel. So you're kind of art directing within this little box, and everything has to feel right. So when you find yourself in on a project where there's a very specific style guide that you have to follow, that's when process really helps in iterative processes, and having the discipline to follow those stages helps, and helps you make your choices, and helps the people who are you're working for you know, be able to insert themselves into the process
Well,
so that it can get done quicker.
and this is a good kind of, well, not even segue, but just connects well with something that we've been talking about just in the DEMA department in general, is having, like, in some ways I hate doing group projects because group projects are a lot different than working with other people at a studio collaboratively and stuff. But at the same time, it is a way to force you to see holes in your process like this, where if you're doing a group project where we kind of force you to you do these thumbnails and then you pass them off to another student and then they give you feedback about, well, I think this would be a cool way to, like, so, and I don't even know, but just as a hypothetical example, saying, other students are your clients for making a Magic the Gathering card or something like that, where they say, hey, make this, and then you have to make those concepts, those thumbnails, and then they say, I like this one, And then you're also learning what it's like dealing with clients where you're like, that was my least favorite one. That's Ken, I'm sure, has had experience. And then you slowly also learn how to present your thumbnails in a way that they hopefully choose the one that is actually the one that you want to be working on, so there's ways of doing that. I don't know, Ken, if you want to talk about that a little.
You also have to be able to speak to why you're making the choices you're making. I know
Yes.
as an art director, I would come in and I would be put onto a project and I'd read the design, I'd meet with the creative director and the lead designer and the technical director and everything, and we'd have those meetings and we'd talk about what it is we want to make, and we probably do a little prototype of something, and based on the mechanic, based on the prototype and the target audience, I would start putting together an idea of the visual direction of something, and I would have reasons why I'm choosing. It's not like I'm going to make this blue because I like the color blue, right? It's
Right.
like I'm making this blue because this is the brand color. This is the hex color for this particular. Like there's stuff. There's reasons why you make choices, and that allows you to, if you know why you're making your choices, and you're in a meeting full of executives, and they say this isn't working for me, I could then explain, well, the reason we did that is because of this. Like there's some background, there's some reasoning behind the choices you're making. And you can actually talk to it and have a discussion about it. And then and usually it's you're trying to create something visually that supports whatever the the experience or the design. You're trying to heighten an experience for a user, and you're trying to use the art to help that happen.
I don't know how many. I'm trying to remember. I feel like we have this on one of the shop talks or something where you talked specifically about your art director test that you did for Game Loft, where all of the stuff you're talking about right now is directly part of that art director test, where it's about, it's one thing to say they ask you to make a quick document of like how to improve these visuals and stuff like that, and you may be a really good artist and just be able to like take it and improve it, and it's like cool, that looks better. But Ken's document really showed this is what's not working about this from a value structure standpoint, from a shape language standpoint. Like just there was a bunch of stuff that you included in there, like you're saying, that makes it so that this is not, well, we just don't really like your style or something. It's like, oh, you can art direct no matter what style we're going for, because these are just foundational principles of how to communicate visually, basically, right? So, yeah.
There was a game we developed in new IP at EA Salt Lake, where you're running through, you're playing as a fox, a hawk, a gator, or a rabbit, and you're running through this forest. And before I came onto the project, all the backgrounds were kind of done in a nice soft watercolory kind of style. And they were all round and kind of, and then I played the prototype that they did, the white box prototype. And then I looked at the reference that they were going to go towards visually. And I realized that the whole game was about speed and about running through this environment. And so I changed the design of the environments to be very angular and to have lots of verticals because you're running horizontally. So uh, the reason I did that is with the backgrounds all being round and soft before, and you're moving past it, there's all these soft edges, so you're not feeling the speed. As soon as we put in lots of verticals, and you're moving horizontally, suddenly the game started to feel more dynamic because you have all these reference points that are contrasting against the the core mechanic of the game, and so that's the thing is that's what I found really fun as an art director on these projects is it's not about my style or my artistic expression. It's about uh, what makes the game feel better, what makes it more fun, and what heightens the experience for the user, which is it kind of, and then you can make choices based on something other than uh, style. You can make choices. We want it to be this visually this this way so that it actually makes the experience better. And um, so it's about building a project and making something cooler and heightening it with the art direction rather than just making something pretty. Because we can all make stuff that's pretty, but can we make it functional? Can we make it enhance the game design?
I mean, and I was going to mention, since you were talking about the sense of speed, I think I've talked with you about this, Ken, before, but like when I was working on the Asphalt Racing game series, we had that same issue where the executives would want to just like, we got to go super fast so that you have a good sense of speed. But then because you're going so fast, it's extremely difficult to take corners and stuff. And so, because I mean, we would have cars that were going just ludicrous speeds basically. And they're like, well, make the roads, just make the roads super wide so it's easier. And it's like, you totally lose your sense of speed when you're going 30 miles an hour, but you're in a alleyway versus going 300 miles an hour, but you're on salt flats and there's nothing around you other than you are getting some sense of speed from the ground. But like you're talking about adding verticals, that was a huge, and just so everybody knows, this was like a huge thing. We're constantly having to fight with the executive producers on and stuff. Is like the wider you make, we got to a point where some of the roads were like to real world scale for the size of your car. The road was like, like a 16 lane highway or something. So you're going to have no sense of speed from that because you're not getting that, something, it looks like it's moving slowly because it's so far away essentially. But I think that what you're talking about, that point about having the background really rounded, is the type of thing that I can imagine initially with doing concept art and stuff. It probably looked really nice. You have like concept art showing the characters and then like this nice rounded, feels soft, like concept art that would work well maybe for a film or something like that. But then once you have the gameplay going and it's like, this isn't, most people, if you don't have that art direction eye, they feel something is wrong, but they don't know why. And like what Ken keeps saying is being able to say, this isn't just my opinion, man. It's like there's actual, I mean, I hate to, I mean, there's actual research even behind that type of stuff and everything too. But I mean, just tons and tons of experience of shape language and again, tone, like not tone. What am I?
Definitely my background as an animator too made me think uh, differently as an art director than maybe another art director who came from a different discipline
Sure.
would approach something. Um, so there's that as well. It just so happened that that project was all about movement and forward movement and chasing things uh, so I knew from my animation experience how important that contrast and that relative kind of scale is um, to give a feeling to make something feel fast or slow
I
if you want
guess,
to slow something down.
does anybody have any questions about all, like, I mean, anything we're talking about, or maybe like even questions about like kind of more, I don't know, practical, like, okay, I kind of get that idea, but if you want us to show some examples of anything in particular or anything, I have a few other things I was going to bring up today too. But I did want to, before we move on from that, I just wanted to see if anybody had anything they wanted to ask. I am watching the chat, by the way, too, but because Ken, I'm sorry, you're not going to get out of me ranting about Unreal. Ken thought I wasn't going to rant about
Please.
Unreal, but it's going to happen. No, I'm kidding.
I live for your rants.
And now that Marla's not here, I can rant about it as much as I want. Well, no, so I'm bringing up, this is all still related to the fallout from all the Unity madness was, I'm totally fine playing both sides of the fence or whatever. I don't know. There's, about a week after this was all going on, I reached out to some people that I know saying, hey, if you all want somebody that has a lot of Unity experience to help studios that are using Unity switch to another engine like Unreal or Godot or anything like that, I'm totally up for that, basically. And they just got back to me this morning saying we have a bunch of studios we have a lot of requests coming in for people that are wanting to switch from Unity to Unreal. And so that's part of why I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I can do that, because so I'm going to be pushing myself to be using Unreal a lot over the next couple of months. But oh, cool. Rowie is sharing video from the Gorillaz music video. Those are really nice too. But talking about the speed space relation we were just talking about, those music videos are awesome. So I'm really just throwing that out there just to let everybody know, like, I'm already seeing coming across my plate the part of the fallout from all this Unity debacle going on, where there's been a lot of people publicly saying, we'll never use Unity again. There's going to be a lot of people that aren't making some big public statement. They're never going to use Unity again, and we'll see that over the next couple of years. But so I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's, I'm definitely really looking at how I might be updating, classes and stuff. By the way, even though I have classes where the assignments are using Unity, I've always been flexible about, if you're already using Unreal for other projects and stuff like that, you can use that. But, going forward, it may be more explicitly like using Godot and Unreal. But I was going to complain about Unreal a little bit just because the editor is so gigantic and bloated compared to Unity and Godot. It's disgusting for me. I'm like trying to open just like a sample project, and it's like, wait for 15 minutes, even on a nice computer. It's like, yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm just saying, Roy, that's a good example. There was one other thing I was going to bring up too. I mean, I could complain more about Unreal, but I don't know. I'll get into it again, but it's I'm running into the issues that bothered me about Unreal is even with sample projects and stuff like that, it's meant for big AAA titles, and so things are kind of necessarily more convoluted and more complex to support big AAA titles. I understand why they're structured the way they are, but it's like I feel like the whole mentality behind an Unreal project is not designed well for rapid iteration and stuff. So
Mm. What do you have a sense of the learning curve of both compared to I mean, I've worked on a bunch of different engines. I've played with the Unreal Engine a bunch. We did a little bit of stuff at EA, but
what I feel like
what's the learning curve in terms of Unreal versus Unity versus Godot?
I think it depends on what you're doing with it, because I would say for the most part artists love working on Unreal because you can I mean, like I always say, it's like you can make beautiful looking stuff. It's so artist friendly. There's so many good animation so not just the materials and rendering and stuff, but animation tools that are part of the editor, cinematics tools and all that type of stuff. But then what's scary for me is from a game development standpoint, I think that I don't know, and it's hard to judge because I have been using Unity for so long. What I would say is, even though Unity also gets really complex, I know that it's, but I would say that when you very first get started with Unity, if you were creating just a really basic, an empty project that you started doing, like there's a really good rollerball tutorial that is like, you have an empty project, we bring in a sphere, and you start rolling. What that sound effect is. Hang on.
That's pretty impressive.
All right. Oh, I need to make some custom sounds, or is it going to make me do Nitro to do that? What? I don't have to have Nitro for that?
No, you can do it on the server.
Ah, nice. Okay, I'll add some annoying sound effects. I always forget about those, and then somebody used that in one of my calls earlier. The
Oh, my ears.
the air horn. Sorry, that's what you get for hanging out in here. Yeah. So for me, the thing is, like, I feel like, and part of this is too. This is where what I like about. I've been messing around with Godot as well. Just the fact of, like, in Unreal, to open up a project takes so long, and there's so much overhead with just navigating the editor and stuff, that it's like, I feel like in Unity it's a little, I just feel like it feels a little less overwhelming initially, even though I know there's a ton of stuff in it, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, but again, like I'm saying, I think that if you start with a basic Unity tutorial, you're not tripping over, like, for me, this gets into, with Unreal, I don't like so many things. It's like a difference in design philosophy of the actual editor, where it's like, I'm going to go modify this material. Here's a new window. Then I want to modify a blueprint. That's another window. And there's all these different windows, and I'm sure I can customize it, but the default for how things open up is not set up for, like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess in Unity, I feel like when I click on a material, it just shows me material information over in the inspector. Like, almost anything I click on, it shows me information in the inspector. In Unreal, it's like, well, there's some information in the inspector, but again, because this is like a big AAA product, there's like literally everything you would ever need to know about every single part of this, like, sphere. And it's like, I just wanted to turn on the collider. I don't know where the collider is on this, or how do how do I change this thing's material? I opened up a sample project. I mean, it's not from Unreal. It's from, somebody on their marketplace. And I opened it up and it's like this big, beautiful environment and all the grass is black. There's definitely something wrong with the material. So I have to spend some time figuring out what's going on with this material. I have to go drill into all these different pieces to finally find, well, it's not just its material, it's the master material that those materials are all based off of, and that one's broken apparently, and it's this gigantic convoluted spaghetti network of stuff that I'm like, I've even done stuff with this before. I'm like, this is just going to definitely take me like 30 minutes at least to pick through and try to figure out what's going on with it, where I feel like in Unity it's much easier to say, I'm just going to swap in a different simple shader that I know is going to mostly look the same. But, again, like, it's not that you can't do that in Unreal, but it's more like in my mind, the way that I feel like I have to hunt down rabbit holes instead of things just being like, this is what this thing is. I don't know. It's kind of, that's the best way I can describe it right now.
Feels like Unreal really is set up for a whole bunch of specialists to create something, like a team of people, whereas Unity, a generalist can jump in and knock out a prototype.
That's exactly right. I've never thought about putting it that way, but being developed by a bunch of specialists, it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's the thing, is a VFX specialist, they jump in there and they're like, I'm making this crazy stuff. But it's like,
dive into this shader and
tell them to go make a landscape real quick. I have no idea how the landscape system works or whatever. You know what I mean? You're 100. That's a great way of looking at it. That's the thing. It's Unreal is great if you have a team of experts, but like at working as a generalist or working, I would even say with like 3 people that you probably have something that you're good at, but you're 3 good generalists, and then you have something that's your focus, like programming or game design or whatever, or animation.
We would have a week, maybe 2 weeks if we were lucky, to turn around a prototype at EA in the incubation group, and there was about 4 or 5 of us working on that, and that was a second. Like, we were also working on games that were being shipped, but
that was your extra work.
Honestly, it was extra work that we were asked to do, just multitasking. But we could do that with Unity. We could get something pretty quick. Within a day or 2, we could have something that was ugly but functional.
What I would say is with Godot, what's exciting to me about Godot is I do not look at it as a replacement for Unity. What's exciting about it to me is it feels very similar to when I first started seriously considering Blender versus 3ds Max, because it feels like there are things that it's doing right that are different that I like. And what I plan on doing is continuing to use Godot more and more. I think it's still not really actually ready for prime time. Godot is already ready for, I would say, certain indie developers and stuff like that. There are games that have been released on Xbox and Switch and stuff made with Godot, so that the proof is there that it's possible to do that. But they are typically either 2D games. Godot is really strong with 2D already, and then you can do 3D, but it's more limited than Unity and Unreal right now. I've been really impressed with what you can do with 3D in Godot, but I would still say that's not like there's not going to be a major studio that is seriously considering that. But they now have all this funding. They are over 50,000 euros a month from launching their development fund. What, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, or whatever.
And it's a community that are going to
Yeah.
all contribute to how best to build out the
That's the killer.
the
That's the huge mistake that Unity made. Is most indies and hobbyists, which was their whole base, they're not the people making Unity a bunch of money, but they're the base that builds the amazing community that gets studios using them. And they wiped that out, because I pretty much guarantee you almost all indies and hobbyist developers are moving away from Unity now. And so, and that's like Nathaniel's mentioning the Prowl engine. I know there's a couple of other really nice open source engines out there. I do think there's a bunch of exciting stuff going on. I still think that right now Godot has kind of the groundswell support, because enough people have been watching it that I feel like they have that kind of, like I said, that groundswell support, where some of the others, like, I mean, there's Prowl, there's also another one called Unit Engine, and a couple other things that that look like they're great for 3D, but they haven't necessarily been proven by having shipped products yet, and so it's going to be it's going to take longer to build up community trust with those.
Yeah, a good example of that is Prowl. Prowl's made like by a former major plugin developer for Unity, and it's like it's meant to be like a one-to-one almost replication of the Unity workflow, and it's looking really good. But at the same time, we won't know how good it is until something is either shipped with it or we get more hands-on experience.
Right, and
That's
I mean,
the case for a lot of new engines.
I
that are coming
think,
out.
is that the one that
It's
I'm not
made by
even.
the guy who made like a voxelized engine or whatever.
Yeah, okay. I think, yeah, Nicholas was sharing stuff, but I don't even think there's. I'm just searching for Prowl game engine, and I don't think it's even like.
Yeah, it's like a Discord only right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I'm not like meh poo pooing it. I'm. It's awesome that people are doing that stuff. That's where I think that Godot is. What they were in the perfect spot at the right time to step into this big void that Unity is leaving for indie developers, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely Godot is going to be filling that hole for a long time, but it's going to be really, really interesting over the next few years seeing what all is going to come out because of this.
Right. And like for me, it's not that I think that Godot is the best one out there. I mean, especially for 2D stuff, there's a ton of good options,
2D
Game Maker and
all
everything like that too.
Game Maker, Game Maker Studio, I think.
Oh, sorry. I was going to read Brendan responded too. I completely agree. When I looked into porting over Dimension Runners into Unreal, it just looked so complex, even just to get my character models loaded into it. Unreal just is so much more complicated than Unity. I really want to stay with Unity. Everything's much easier to understand. Yeah, and that's the thing is too, for me, okay, the thing is, tons of people are still going to use Unity. They walked so much stuff back. Tons of people, I think even people that are saying we'll never use Unity, they'll be like, no, actually we will probably, because I mean, it's unlikely. But that's the problem, is they broke people's trust so much. It's like, it's frustrating for me, because I of course still love Unity as an engine, as an editor, but you're like, they seemed so tone deaf about the whole problem, about how this was rolled out and everything, that it's like there's just no trust that they wouldn't do something catastrophically stupid again soon, or in 2 years or 5 years or something. And it's like, do I want to get even more embedded with this company that is making big stupid decisions like this?
That's a tough question.
I think that's part of the issue for me. and that this is where it also gets down to, my personal preference of, I really like Unity, but I like supporting. I mean, that's the thing. I've been testing out Godot for probably the past 2 years now. I download it once in a while and test it out. And this was a big enough issue to make me like, okay, I'm going to spend some more time with it. But yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to know what the fallout's going to be over the next 2 years. Also, not to mention, the other thing I was saying, what was I going to talk about too, is just the current, I think it's fair to say, almost catastrophic state of the game industry currently, where it's bizarre because it's not it's not catastrophic in the sense that these game companies are still making tons of money and everything. It's not like the game industry is imploding. But
I have some good insights in this if you'd like me to share.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, all I was going to say is like it's so normal for us to go through boom and bust periods in the game industry where we're growing like crazy, so we're gonna hire, and then there's a bust period where we lay people off. I just think that the scale of it is, because the game industry has gotten so big this year, even though this is a fairly normal cycle for the game industry to go through, the numbers of people being laid off and stuff are, I think, higher than I mean, possibly even since 2008 or anything like that. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
So the insight is basically during 2020, a lot of companies got a whole new influx of users due to everybody going online.
Right.
Obviously with the pandemic, and there was something where basically there's safe money and then there's secure money, which is there's a pretty big difference. Where it's basically now these companies for the longest time they were okay spending all of this massive influx of money they got from COVID, even though they weren't making it at that level anymore. So that now they're starting to run out of that money, and they're now they're cutting their spending. So they're laying off a bunch of people who they hired during COVID. They're or during like 2022, 2022. They're laying off, they're canceling projects, all these sorts of things, just because they're no longer getting that cash flow and are having to realize that they have to cut back in order to survive as a company. And it's happening across everything. Even like studios within like Roblox, for example, are doing the exact same thing. Yeah. Which is a weird.
Well, and it's even in the tech industry because the tech industry in general was making crazy money during the lockdown period, and it's the way most companies are growth minded. So when the sun's shining, you make hay or whatever. It's like grow as much as possible, because we know that later it's not going to be like this. So what we want to do is grow as much as possible so that we're at this level. We grow. And then when we do cuts, we're actually still above that level we were at previously. That's the whole plan. But it's hard seeing, and it was pretty crazy seeing Unreal or Epic Mega Games. Just so everybody knows, Epic Mega Games is the company that owns Unreal Engine. They actually just had over 800 layoffs, which is like a 16% workforce reduction. They were making crazy amounts of money off Fortnite. They're still making crazy amounts of money off Fortnite, but we hired to here and we need to scale it back down. I mean, and you can see
they're actually not making money off Fortnite. They're actually cash flow negative right now. Because they're trying to push Fortnite as like a platform now.
Well, now they're not, right? I mean, they were making crazy.
And they've burned through all of it trying to make this like platform that's subjectively just bad. Like Unreal Engine for Fortnite is incredibly underpowered. You can't access half the features that are within Unreal Engine itself, and it's like, in general, having like a fully published game that wasn't meant to be a platform, and your saving grace is like, oh, we're only making money from people making stuff for us. That's a really bad statement to make, just in general.
I just shared a link where I think that's got
that's his statement.
Yeah, you can read his statement. So there was a public statement, and but Yeah, this was kind of a big deal. Some of you may have heard of Steam Spy, which was created by I'm not probably pronouncing his name right, but Sergey Galyankin. But he was their director of publishing strategy at Epic, and he just announced he's leaving the company. And he basically directly said Epic Games is on its way to transforming from a game developer, engine creator, and publisher into a platform. And he just said, I'm not a good fit for this new version of Epic. It requires people of a different kind. So
Yeah, it's
He's-
not gonna work.
yeah, he is a super smart dude. So that's like
Yeah, he's incredibly intelligent and has like a vast good previous products and things that he's worked on and contribution list.
you can check out his Twitter feed here too. So okay, sorry, I know we've gone over an hour here. I don't know, Ken or Nathaniel or anybody, any parting words of wisdom or last minute 30-minute questions or anything like that?
I have some departing wisdom, I guess, which is to reemphasize the thing I think that's been said over the past like 2 previous meetings, is that your engine, no matter what you're using, even if you're familiar with Unity, try to realize how you're going to scale from there, and try to realize what you're working on. Like for example, what's her name? Brendan, for example, is like, yeah, you understand Unity right now, but if you spent a couple months, you would be able to learn Unreal or any other engine just as well.
Right.
And so, like, try not to lock yourself so much into one workflow. Try to dive into everything, find what you want, and go into that.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
you can. The beautiful thing about being a human, you can adapt and learn anything.
It's true. I try to be 3D agnostic and take because I've had to jump into proprietary software and jump into Maya, jump into all of these different programs and work on things, and it's the principles are all the same. You know, they all work the same way. There's just they all have their own little quirks, and it's good to be flexible, like you say. It's good to focus on principles and fundamentals, and kind of be willing to jump over to another. It's actually good to jump around and try new engines, new software. So
Yeah, it's like if you understand the core concepts behind your field, like for example, Ken 3D art or in my case programming, you can swap between them because the concepts stay the same. It's just how you go about using those concepts will change. Like for example, most programming languages nowadays are very similar. It's just the syntax will change, which is slightly how you reword things.
Yep.
The same with an engine. So it's just like it's eventually you'll get a workflow, but yeah, just like keep swapping between them and try to learn as much as you can.
Be flexible. And as AJ, I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, but it is a wise phrase. Never stop creating. Okay, I gotta go. All right, I gotta go, everybody. I will catch y'all on the flip side. Okay.
Have fun. Good luck.
Bye.